It's possible, here. I think it was 17.
Oh, okay, that's what I mean,
Let's
I
stick
need
the
to
clock.
just.
That, and that's different for them too.
Oh, they now, someone's shaking it out. Take off.
So it's July
He's
17th?
on vacation and.
August
17th. July. Wednesday, 17th. Let's talk about that. Okay.
Okay, but the main discovery is this.
Good shade on the list.
I am indeed.
I was just trying to match some damn sheets. like
Listen.
this.
So, yeah, I can see that on the list is.
I mean, more and more that consistency of speed limits.
Well, the speed limit on Hillcrest. I mean,
But we're.
I'm not exactly.
And you also, so you put together another meeting for.
So disappointing.
You know, I only got 2 responses.
You got mine, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I only got 2 out of there. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? I could send out a reminder.
Let's send us.
Again.
Everybody else said.
Jennifer, you all set?
All right, tonight's town board meeting will come to order. Jennifer, would you do the roll call, please?
Yeah. Carl Walter,
Here.
Lori Fitzgerald here, Arlen Kai,
Here.
Steve Jernigan,
Here.
and Tim LeBron.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is approval of minutes. We have 2 sets in here, both from June 11th. One is the closed session. And the other is a regular board meeting. Any comments or corrections or follow those?
I move to approve them.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Tim, what I can do on these, usually is just do, unanimous consent. So
Oh,
we don't
got
have to
it.
vote on
All right.
So if, that and adjournments and financial statements, things like that.
Sounds good.
No problem.
All right.
There's no Lex out.
It's like a lot of.
I'm good right now.
Thank you. And item 4 is the financial report. On page 8.
I'd like to just mention that we paid both of the 2024 road work for Carter. We did not pay for the wedging on that road yet.
That was the 75,000.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're-
Any other comments on the financial thing?
No.
Any questions for Jennifer, comments?
Just one thing on the schedules, for the scheduled meeting on page 2. Tuesday, September 17th, planned commission meeting. Okay, never mind.
Are you on,
Nothing, I'm,
different item?
different item, so. We're good, I don't know, my mouth.
He's joking.
He's eager to get into
Turn the page.
Oh, you're going way too far. Way too far. Okay, without objection, then the financial report and loan updates are approved. Item number 5, public comments. Anyone? No. Item number 6, coming up on page 15, is for fire and EMS. I do want to mention on, for Belleville, that Mike Burkowski, who works at the Torque now. He expressed interest to Lori. I talked to him yesterday. He expressed interest again. So he's willing to be the liaison for us with Belleville.
Excellent.
Awesome. So I don't know that we need to approve anything with that. Jennifer, does he have to be given an oath for that position?
I guess,
Or would that come from the administrator?
We haven't done that.
yeah, I guess, it's, I would think we would want to still have him be aware of open meetings law and just things of that nature. So I would say just to like make him aware of some of the way that you would want to behave just being on a committee like that. But he's a liaison, so I guess I'm not quite sure. Is he going to be sitting at the table or is he going to just be sitting in the audience? I wasn't.
What I
really-
think is non-voting. So I think not,
Just sitting
not,
in the audience? Yeah. Okay, then I would say it would be okay just to like not have him take an oath or do it officially if you just kind of sitting in.
okay,
Is
and
that
what I'm,
understanding?
that's the understanding I have. What I haven't done yet is check in with Ted and Teresa. So Ted Fahey and Teresa Pelton about, if they require anything at the Fire and EMS District Board level, if they require an oath, or if they require anything. But if he's just and I'll let them know, right at this point, just a liaison to move like, information back and forth.
Okay, so
Not
what I
a
would imagine is that what you're gonna probably say is, he's not gonna be sitting at the table voting. He's going to be like, it's an open meeting, so anyone can attend an open meeting and sit in an audience. I'm sure they don't have many people sitting in an audience. And that he would just be there to convey information or be there as relaying information. And if that were to change, then I think you would then we would wanna make some sort of vote and make them aware of what we need to
Okay.
do, things like that. If
And
that
it
were to
could, I
change.
suppose it could change, but the discussion I had with him yesterday was really just, hey, you're there to listen and bring information back. Nothing about vote.
Okay.
At least now, I mean, up now, if it evolves to that, then we'll go through whatever steps the district needs. And whatever we have. One question that it came up, I think in an email at some point a while back was, is there a meeting per diem for something like this? It's not like a committee, it's not like the planning commission necessarily, but it's not. Well, it's not like the planning commission, it's different, it's sort of a.
That has not been common practice in the past. That does not mean that that cannot be,
Okay,
but we have never, I don't, I've never given that to someone in that position before.
okay, and it didn't come up from him, I think, so
Okay,
it was just a discussion point, but. Some point in time.
Wondering, should he ask for a role?
If you want to talk about that, like at some point during budget discussion, I think that would
Let's-
be appropriate.
Yeah, but not, maybe not just for this, but for if there's any other similar participation where we should pay for gas, whatever. So Mike Kurtowski. Anything from Oregon or Brooklyn? So you want to
I didn't go the last week, didn't go on vacation. Last month.
Just as.
An ongoing discussion about Lexapol, which is a company that provides kind of leadership on everything being done to the proper standards. This is a paid service. It was more discussed a few months ago. One of the representatives from Maple Bluffs came and talked to us. They're people. They had it on a small scale. I'm not sure anybody totally understood much, but you could get literature to look at.
Can I interrupt you for just pause for a second? In the air, I think it's totally drowning out any kind of online. That was.
Supposed to tell me.
I'll be loud.
It might click off. Wow.
Okay, anyway, comes right down to it, it's a pretty expensive program, and once again, they're tabling it for a future meeting. I don't know if that's it. My guess is it's not gonna be until at least fall when we break out. And the only other thing besides the chief's report, the EMS report, is they've talked about the fire chief that basically really never had. There's never really a sick leave policy on the total number of homes. Or Brooklyn has been making changes there. There's new rules now for the chiefs for vacation. All those, you gotta use them. In the past, I think things have just collected. So now there definitely are rules for that. If anybody's interested, I have those fire chief will earn 120 hours each year, beginning 2024. Any unused vacation in excess of 60 hours will be paid out on the last payroll in December. Past, that's just been kind of building.
Is it just at the chief level or is that for everyone?
That's at the chief level. Okay. Beginning 2025, any unused vacation at the end of the year will be paid out on the last payroll. 2026, unused vacation will be paid out on the last payroll in December. No vacation shall be carried over unless the prior approved by their district board.
Okay.
And then they went into a sick leave, also sick leave policy.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. That was pretty much it for that meeting. There was more discussion on the MOE. There's a discussion that at least one of the stations was not going to, I don't think this has happened, was not going to fill out both the fire and the EMS together, but with what we've received, I know that's not true because we've seen both from Glenn and, okay, so that part is mute now. That was about it. And then I just handed this out at the village fire. We've been working on coming up with, the chief came up with questions for a survey for a possibility of what they're gonna be doing with the fire station as it's growing. There's two scenarios. It's gonna stay there and grow somehow, or move it, put it someplace else. He initially came up with his questions, and rightfully so. One of the commission members had said, you know, we have to look at this, and they're great questions, chief, but we got to make these unbiased, as we all would do if we're coming up with. If I'm ahead of a situation, my questions are probably going to lean towards what I want, and I think Glenn made no bones about that, which is great. So we took and our task was to rewrite them without bias. None of us are professional writers. However, my youngest daughter is. So I sent one to her. She teaches a freshman, college freshman in biased writing, and she rewrote the question. And basically, they looked pretty good. So I just gave everybody a copy of. Second page is basically the questions, and the first page is the latest copy we got from Glenn. Maybe this is what it'll look like when this goes out as a survey, and the survey will probably go out to everybody that's being serviced by the village fire department. So the residents here I would imagine, are going to get the same thing. This isn't finalized, but it does say at the bottom for review only. It's still in a draft situation. And other than swearing in a few new firefighters, the village fire staff has been growing with some really good people coming in. And these are new students that are being involved with Glenn and also being involved with Madison College firefighting. So.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. And you covered both Oregon and both. Yeah. And number 7, park report. Special guest Dave Franson. And there's a write-up starting on page 15. And Dave, did you want to speak to that or?
Sure, and open it up for questions that anybody might have. So I've only been in the job 70 days now. But the report that you have there is what we're doing on every single one of the town parks, plus working on the revision of the recreation and open space plan. I do want to, and by the way, hi Sharon, wherever you are. I do want to just make a comment that I am so appreciative of all the members that are on the park committee. They're all doing a yeoman's job of gathering information as we work through each of the problem areas on each of the parks. So I don't know If you have questions, I can talk about a particular park, Kennedy Park, Hillcrest Park, if you have questions or you want me to elaborate on a particular park. Right now, we had 2 days where we had the entire park committee touring each of the parks. We've looked at the equipment, as an example, for instance, at Kennedy. A lot of the equipment is perfectly fine, except for the platforms on the playground equipment, and the stairs have rust and some sharp edges. So right now, Eugene Lewis, a member of the park committee, right here on my right, so to introduce him. He's actually in charge of the liaison for Kennedy Park. I made each person in the park committee a liaison for a particular park. We have 6. I'm the head. We have 5 people, 5 parks. They've been given that responsibility. Eugene's been great. He's talked to the manufacturer of the equipment to see whether or not we can get replacement parts or the cost of new stuff. He contacted all color powder coating. Thank you. Mark Mortensen. And Mark Mortensen actually came out to view and assess the equipment, and in terms of disassembling the platforms and the stairs. This would be done in fall if we chose this route. And basically sandblasting it, welding places where you might need to add additional metal, and repowder coating it so that it would become safe again, or better utilization of the park equipment. We also talked about, for instance, if we could replace the stairs and the platforms with some aluminum, welded aluminum. And so Eugene has gone to a welder in the Oregon area to get information about whether or not that would be an option. So our goal, like this and all the other parks, is to take what we see as things that need to be improved, repaired, replaced, whatever, and then figure out what the options are, get the cost estimates on it, and then move forward based on that type of thing. So some of the parks need more stuff than others. Some just need some benches. Kennedy Park has got a huge green open space. Again, I'm sort of talking, since I started on Kennedy, I'm still talking about that. The town employees who mow that have asked us to come up with some different plans for that park, because they, well, depending on who you talk to, either take 4 hours or 5 hours to mow that park. And sort of funny, as like Ryan says, he goes like, you know, I'm getting older. I can't do it all in one fell swoop. So I would 10 to 12, then I take my lunch break so I can use the bathroom. And then I do the other 2 hours in the afternoon or whatever. So, and the park committee has a consensus. We'd like to do some different things that wouldn't require mowing in that park. It's a fairly large mowing area. So we've talked, and I don't know if you've been out there, but there is one section on the northwest side. It's a very nice square rectangular piece, flat. Basically it's being mowed and nobody ever uses it. Okay, so what could it be used for? Okay, we talked about maybe planting prairies, putting in paths there. We talked about it could be a soccer field or 2 soccer fields for younger age kids. Talking about planting trees. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of things like that that we've been working on. We also got a master gardener who came to the last park meeting, which we've assigned a couple of projects, including the town park. There's some plantings that were done by the Mountain Biking Corp. CORP is the name of that organization that did the mountain biking paths there. They did some plantings in there. There's also a butterfly garden at the town park. She was actually out there with Jeff Nelson last night. I know that because I was out biking last night and biked through the town park and stopped to talk to them. And I just talked to Michelle 3 hours before that, and she said, well, I got to call Jeff. And then I biked through there that evening, and they're already looking at that. I did provide her, there's a program through Dane County to get free plants for projects like this. So I have You have to do it by July 17th, but I provided all the information to our new master gardener. And she's gonna plan on ordering some stuff with that. Ryan also asked us, he said it's becoming difficult. Well, the cemeteries were given to us by the board. Ryan and Abel asked for us to take over the cemeteries, and I said, I have no opinion, it's up to the board. The board said, okay, fine. So on the cemetery on Highway A, there's a kind of a steep bank that's kind of a pain in the butt for them to mow. I think they actually use like a smaller mower and a rope to pull it up the hill or whatever to be safe. So he asked if we could do something to convert that grassy area that needs to be mowed into something, either ground vegetation or prairie grasses or something like that. So we're working on that. I've sort of assigned that to our new volunteer master gardener. She's gone by and taken a look. She's checking out different options and things on that. So, I mean, that's just a small little glimpse of what's happened in the last 70 days. So
I thought this was a great inventory, park by park. And to me, what I was struck by, not necessarily that I have questions, but I was struck by that you're not that far away from a park plan. It's really some cost estimates, priorities, and schedule, and you're like 80% there probably. It seems like. Was that the intention?
Well, I mean,
I think that's what it is. It seems like that's what it is to me.
All I'm trying to do there is report what we've been doing over the last 70 days. So, I mean, there's been a lot, and I've asked a lot of the park committee in the last 70 days. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, your point, I don't know if are you talking about the, incorporating a number of those things in the recreation and open space plan? Is that what you're referring to, or just the park plan by itself for future years?
I was just thinking park plan.
Yeah.
Necessarily, but if there's overlap, then I'm not trying to shut down overlap if that applies.
No,
but I think it's what to do with the parks, and there's a lot here already that you uncovered. That's great.
Yeah, good, thanks. And we had a very productive meeting with Bridget, the senior planner for Dane County, at the last park meeting. So she clarified a lot about what our responsibility was in terms of what the park committee would provide for that recreation open space plan. And actually, it's way less than I even imagined, way less. So, basically descriptives of the parks. What she wants priorities of things that are going to be done. She doesn't want any no cost estimates. So we don't actually have to funnel down to one specific avenue that we're going to take. I mean, we're just supposed to state, for instance, the idea is 2.4 acres of Kennedy Park should be converted into whatever. And that's basically it. I think one of the other things. Oh, Steve, you had a question.
You just
I read your mind.
You just nailed it.
Thank you. Okay. I think one of the other things as a park committee, as a group, and in talking with Brian and Abel too, what they see at the parks is, if you look at the park plan from 40 years ago, there was a fairly significant shelter that was proposed for that park, the town park. And I think that would be tremendous. I mean, there's a lot of use. Every time I go through that park, there are people there, walking dogs, going for walks, running through the park, or biking like I did last night. I mean, but we kind of thought that was one thing that was missing from a lot of the parks in the town of Oregon. Now, Bicentennial has a shelter, and that kind of spurred us to thinking, this would be kind of nice. Especially when people are bringing families, and you got mom and dad, or grandma and grandpa, and you got the kids, they're playing on the playground or throwing a frisbee or whatever they're doing. And, there are people that want to just hang out. And as Eugene pointed out at one of our visits to one of the parks, it's I wonder why some people don't. Kennedy Park seems relatively unused. Now, maybe a demographic thing in the neighborhood that all of the kids that were there have grown up, and now you have an aging senior senior majority population demographic there. But you know, there's really no place for adults to like gather or to have families have a picnic lunch there or meet with their aunts and uncles out at the park, you know, and so, you know, like for Kennedy, we would envision like having a shelter that'd be big enough for like 2 picnic tables to be underneath it. So I don't know, you know, we were looking at the parks, you know, what would make some of these things more inviting, more user friendly, invite more people than just, you know, a bunch of young kids playing on the playground equipment when they're bored or whatever, so. And then I didn't know if you want to talk about cemeteries at all. I mean, you mentioned that in your email that we were going between the 3 of us on, there's 2 cemeteries, the one on Highway A. Are you guys familiar with the cemetery? And the one on Highway D? I've gone by that one on Highway D about 1,000 times and never knew it was even there. So I looked, it's pretty big Google Maps, and it's got right on Google Maps, it's got Lake Harriet Cemetery right there on Google Maps. You don't even need to know the address or anything. Anyway, there was some question about exactly what the town is doing with that and what their responsibility is for the park committee to maintain and see that things are done so that, and whether or not people are supposed to be accessing it or not. And then, why is the town doing all the maintenance, you know, with all the equipment and gas and oil and personnel time? If nobody's supposed to be ever see, it's gorgeous. If you haven't been there, well, I don't know. I'm going to tell you should go there because the amount of plantings there it's amazing. I mean, apparently the guy in 2001, and there's a plaque there for him. I mean, he put in tiger lilies and geez, I'm forgetting. What is the thing you wanted to put around trees? Hostas, all kinds of hostas, and there's paths there, and it's really well kept up, and it's beautiful in there.
Now, both of these, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Both of these, is it a statutory requirement that we take care of the cemeteries, or is it,
Yes,
we have to do something with the cemetery, essentially maintenance.
we just inherit it. After somebody doesn't take care of it, we inherit it, essentially.
Oh, so, and those 2 we've got.
The one we always had, that one we just inherited. When this Ron Pattinson decided he no longer wanted to be the caretaker for it.
Got it,
We
okay.
are the caretakers of it.
And you said that was a few years ago, right?
And not long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
there's a statute.
You would want to, you know, really what you're gonna wanna do is before you're going to do anything, you would really want to look at where that property is, where the corners of that property before you would even do anything. Because Abel said it's not very big, so when you're talking walking past or things, Abel kind of indicates it's not really actually all that big, so.
It's not.
So you would want to make sure very carefully what it is. I think it would be a discussion that we probably would want to talk with staff and everybody else and want to understand what we're doing. Basically, what we're doing right now is you're not going to want a piece of history to go uncared for, so we are just caring for it as you would for anything for historical sake. Not that someone couldn't go, but we also we're just maintaining it right now.
Who owns the land?
I would have no idea who owns the land. This is just something that, this is
Yeah.
something.
You don't think
that-
the township,
Yes.
you don't think the town owns the land?
I have actually no idea. We would never have owned the land because we just inherited taking over it. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so neither of them are active.
No,
Frenchtown Cemetery is active.
Very nice.
I wouldn't even know what's buried in there. We have no record of it. What I've been told is there are, headstones there, but possibly no bodies. But the headstones remained at some point in time.
There's 2 different burial sites at the Highway D cemetery, the Lake Harriet Cemetery. There's clearly one over here and there's clearly one over here on the left side. And when I say walking past, I mean, the town crew mows paths from one side to the other. So it's very easy to walk to one and look at it and walk through and walk to the other one and see all of I mean, there's even an obelisk in there. I mean, that's about, I don't know, 8 feet tall or something. I didn't measure it. But yeah, the one on Highway A, and if you're out driving around, I'd recommend you go stop in at both of these and take a look at them, but. Yeah, the story, that's called Storytown Cemetery. I guess a long time ago it was called Story Cemetery, but now it's Storytown Cemetery. But and there's a big sign there and it's well kept. The town sells lots there if you want to have you and your wife buried there.
So it is active.
It's totally active. That one is totally active. The other one apparently is a historic site, which it just seems like if it's a historic site, I don't know, you put things up all around, like where all the schoolhouses were in the village, there's signs for
It
that.
just hasn't gotten to that point, I would say, and I would say that, as I said to you in an email, the families that live around there are very conscious of it. They're very, and before we would want to do anything, we want to be very careful of the neighbors that are around that and be very conscious of that. They're very protective of what's going on, and I would just want the board to be aware of that, and we would
Okay,
want to reach
for
out to
sure.
there to know, to be very, just before we want to start to go into anything, let's just reach out to them and know what.
I mean,
We definitely should, I mean, no matter what, before we do anything with it, we should talk to the people who are.
Yeah, and they might have more history of who owned it or where that went, because that Clark family has been around for a long time and they might know.
I can provide you a list of everybody that's supposedly buried there. I have a list,
Okay.
so if you want it, I can get it to
I
you.
don't need that.
Okay, but I'm sure it was done by,
You guys,
I'm sure it was done by the gentleman who restored the cemetery.
Probably,
So,
probably.
and I was even thinking, if we really need to find out, if people are actually buried there, if that makes a difference in what we do or don't do. I think I could probably get my hands on like one of those ground penetrating radar screen things from somebody, and we could go to each grave site and see whether or not there's something underneath it. Although they would have been buried in wood boxes back then. And we're talking 1800s. Okay, we're not talking 1900s.
Right.
A lot of them are 1800s. So there would, be a lot of decomposition if in fact there are bodies under there. And I don't really have an opinion about whether there would be or wouldn't be.
Who knows? But I do think talking to the neighbors or the residents in that area, if that's not the number one step, it's in the top three, to sort out what's going on there. So that, I don't know if.
And you're suggesting who would do that? You, the board, me?
I guess
Jennifer?
I don't know what do we want to do with it? Right now, we're just maintaining it. I don't know what the proposal of what we want to do with it in the future, I think would be, we're just maintaining it. Are you wanting it as a site for people to visit? Are you gonna want to welcome people there? Are you gonna, I guess that's what the board has to
I think it's a
decide.
step away.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. so-
One second. So, I think that's a step away after we do a little digging.
Yeah.
Research.
Yeah.
Digging is probably not the right expression to use in this case.
All
All right.
Nicely done.
So,
You can dig it, right?
yeah,
On the Highway D, the Lake Harriet Cemetery,
Yeah, Arlen.
one time I was told that when it became inactive, or when the cemeteries in the village became a little more professionally maintained and active, that a number of the bodies were exhumed and relocated there.
Huh?
How much of that's hearsay, how much of that's fact, it's just another trail to follow. I do appreciate this inventory report that we have here. It is a good basis for plan, but we still need to be having, if we're going to be going for grants, like for park shelters, that we still need to be doing the official plan or hire that to be done more than this.
is that a question to me? I don't know the answer.
We're doing that.
We're just taking that, so that's the
So-
county part.
There's no charge on that.
Yeah,
Right.
Bridget had told us that she would be working on our plan. And she said she needed 2 months, so we were anticipating if things went as scheduled, that she would have a majority of the recreation and open space plan, including our contribution, which I haven't made yet. but which I will be making, let's just say this month, to Bridget. That she would, in 2 months, by the end of August, by our park meeting at the end of August, that she would have a draft version available for us to review. I haven't worked with Bridget. I don't know her timelines. Summers are busy with vacations. I don't really know if that's a nice solid thing or if that's a sliding thing. I have no idea. But anyway, we've got a commitment from her she said she has almost everything she needs, like all the demographic, population stuff, green space, all of that stuff, to put it together. I know one thing that I said right from the get-go, I didn't take a vote on this or whatever. If you've looked at that 40-year-old plan, there are a lot of charts and things in there that are semi-worthless because essentially they're in black and white. And I said, we're doing this in color this time so that you can see all the different areas of whether it's vegetation, open space, whatever, I mean, if you look at, it's like this, I mean, there's not even any grayscale on this. It's just a bunch of blobs and circles and squares and there's no like table to say, well, this square is this and this blob is this, and there's stars with things. I mean,
you're pushing the limit of like what was it,
40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pushing the limit.
No,
of
and I
technology.
realize that color would have been super
Where's the
expensive
video?
back then. Okay, so that's not the case now, so let's do it right, and based on what we have available at this time in our lives.
Perfect. I think what the park committee is doing so far is great, like a quantum leap into getting caught up on things. So congratulations and nice job to everybody.
Thanks.
We do have another item to talk about.
And I just have one other question. So look, right now, based on what Jennifer and I have conversed with each other about, we've got an allocation for park type things of 15,000 a year. That we have the ability to just go ahead and make improvements, replacements, repairs, things like that to equipment. When we're talking about park shelters, maybe some other capital, but I would say capital items that aren't going to fit in to what we are budgeted. How do you want us to approach that? Do you want us to say, okay, the park shelter costs, let's just pick a number, 20,000 for one of the parks. Okay, just to pick a number. Do I put it on the agenda for a board meeting? Do I submit it to Jennifer for consideration? How do you want me?
This is actually the next item that I was going to talk about.
Oh, you were? I thought
You don't have the agenda.
I thought it was the joint meeting.
No.
Sorry, I do have the agenda right here.
So it's B, actually, it's 7B.
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to 8, sorry.
We can go
Go
back.
ahead, whatever you want to do. You're the head guy. You're the
Well,
chief.
as long as you started talking
Yeah.
about B,
Okay,
So one of the things we did last year for actually purchasing based on allocated funds was a procedure where primarily it was aimed toward public works and the office staff. And this is in the packet, I don't know if you have the packet or not, but this is page 21 of the packet. So essentially the procedure was that if funds were allocated in the current budget and available, then for whatever that purchase was, it did not require
Right.
a trip to the board for approval.
I understand that.
It did require a second, essentially set of eyes or sign off to say, if it's park committee, you would come to Jennifer or Stephanie and say, okay, are these funds available? We want to use it for this. Is it within the budget? And if there are funds available, then it's the shortcut is that's where the second sign off happens. And then the board gets involved just in notification that purchase happened.
Yep, I understand that.
So it seems like, and maybe it's just because I don't know where all the park funds are and what's allocated for what, is that might be a tricky thing, or at least something to consider. If you both have a handle on it.
Yeah, we're
totally
fine.
cool.
So I just will say that, so the park fund of 15,000 is coming out of the park savings. So $15,000 was moved into the 2024 budget from park savings. It's not from the levy. So, and the reason $15,000 was put in there was because it was to cover the cost of hiring an expert to help with the park plan. It wasn't really meant to be spent on park expenses. That's why such a large amount was put in there. So although that amount is in there, and as we have found out, we were so lucky to be kind of gifted that amount of money. So that amount of money, and if it wasn't spent, it would stay in savings in the park fund. If it is spent for different things, what you might not want to think of is that, you know, obviously like any savings account, it's going to go down as it's not being replenished. But what you probably do want to start to think about is, what would you want in 2025? Because we're going to start going into next week. We're going to start entering our budget discussions for what we want. We are starting to talk about a financing package of what are some things that we would like to take out a loan for, some capital improvements of different things. So if there are some things that the park committee wants, some capital improvements that the board might want to finance, that might be something that your group might want to come in, and if the board wants to include that in that financing package, they could, such as a park shelter, different things. That would be at a time that you want to do it. But it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can, if the board is going to take it out of savings, but we have to always have a funding source, and a funding source comes before, it doesn't come at time of, like, that.
Well, this is where my uncertainty in the whole thing is, because you've got park savings, you know, GL accounts versus what's been allocated in the budget.
You have a savings account and you have a budget.
That's what I'm saying, is
Sure.
that those two. Because you're giving me a dollar amount of 15,000.
It's in the budget.
That's in the 2024 budget.
Yeah.
Did you say 50 or 15?
15,
15, okay.
Yeah.
which is why my example I gave was 20.
Okay,
To say that it wasn't something that's gonna come in that 15, it's not like we're doing 2 trees at $300 each for Hillcrest Park.
so I guess we do need to,
So so you only have 15, and if you were to go over, the board would have to have that super majority, and to say, hey, the super majority, we'd have to, like, which means
this would be a
4
budget.
out of 5 would have to say, we're going to amend the budget, right?
Right,
To spend over what we approved in the budget.
right. And the timing for now, I do think we need, and
You're going to say, no, we're gonna take that, and we're gonna push it off into 2025, and we're gonna put it into that budget,
Right.
that project.
Right.
The difference would be is like a catastrophe type thing that you didn't foresee. Obviously, that's something that's gonna be different. But what we're going to get away from is something that was practiced in the past was, well, we have the savings account, we're just gonna come in and we're gonna add, and we're just using it from a savings account, we're not budgeting it. We're just gonna keep spending from our savings account and we're not budgeting it. We can't do that anymore. I know that was done in the past.
Right.
That shouldn't be done going forward.
Right. So, so I think even more that the procedure that's in the packet that we did last year is appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
The timing now is that maybe we still need to have budget amendment discussions. I mean, it depends on how quickly we want to move on this. It seems like a period of, like, it could be a period of heavy repairs and maintenance and replacement and whatever, if we want to do it as soon as possible. So we might have that discussion. Or it becomes a planning year, 2024 toward 2025, which is probably more reasonable, given that we're already in July. But a side note, I do think that we need, and I started to work on this, I do think we need a process for budget amendments. And I think this sort of came up in a meeting or two ago, where there's a wish list of projects, or projects that were opportunities that we should try to grab. There wasn't a a financing decision yet. So it didn't pass. I think that there is, in my head at least, I think there's a process that would work and satisfy get things on the list, get financing arranged, finalize and approve the financing for those items. So I think there's a way to do that. I'd rather have something like that and have us work on what that process is, rather than here's an emergency or here's an opportunity and we don't know what to do because it's a little up in the air. It may be as simple as a vote, and then, you know, it'd have to be, for us, it'd be 4 out of 5. It may be as simple as that, but then I think there has to be, does there have to be resident participation or notification or anything? No, it's just the supermajority vote. Okay. So anyways, a side note, I think that I've got some notes on it. I'll try to get it maybe in the next meeting or during the budget discussions. We'll say, hey, let's work on this too in parallel to the actual budget. Just to have something in place. Okay.
So, a separate but related question. We had a meeting, you and Steve and I and Jennifer and Stephanie talked about the impact fees that are currently in the town of Oregon's asset accounts, $26,000. The indication I got at that point in time was that the representatives of the board or whoever was there was recommending that we utilize that $26,000 in this calendar year. And so I want to ask, in order to get rid of the impact fees that are currently sitting there and to show that we have so we don't have to like come up with a plan to specifically identify that when all of this new CARPC stuff comes into being. So I want your opinions or information or whatever, if that is in fact still true, and if that 26,000, for instance, would be available to the park committee with whatever approvals you want to do something in addition to the 15,000 that we have.
The 26,000, did we decide that there was some part of that we couldn't identify why it was in there? Am I thinking of?
No,
I don't think.
no, that the $26,000 is kind of like, it is not separate from the budget, because I don't want to indicate that, but impact fees are kind of a separate class of money in that they can only be used for specific purposes. So they're not going to be things that can be used for all of the things that we would buy and use and purchase in the town of Oregon.
Right.
They can only be, so we can't use them to pay the senior center or to give to the library, for example. So in that case, they can be used for things in parks. So I think in this case, if you came with a proposal of how you would want to use that, I think the board could decide to use those. And I do agree, because there is a time limitation on what some of those fees, and some of those fees have been in there for a while.
Right.
I do think it's a good idea to use some of those fees. And I would recommend that the board would approve using those fees and taking some of those fees out of that account. So yeah, and I would say that is a different use, because those are very earmarked for specific uses alone. So they wouldn't be put into the budget in a way where they can be just used on anything.
But it's my understanding that that is like another savings account. Those fees is like another savings account and should be budgeted before it's spent.
I would agree, it has to be budgeted on certain items, and I think in this case, I would agree with you that they probably should have been budgeted. We just should use them.
Yes,
Because-
understood.
Yeah.
Understood, like the money that's in the savings account, and we should be finding ways, but
And
they're
you,
really funding sources rather than budgeted pools of money. They're funding sources more than anything. And so that's my understanding. And so it should be included in a budget. And if it's not included in this year's budget, we should just make sure we include it in next year's, but spending.
And I think, I think what Jennifer's kind of saying, looking at it and saying, we have problems because we collected these impact fees and we didn't specify their use. We're only have a certain amount of time that we're supposed to actually allocate them, or we're not supposed to be collecting them. The town of Oregon doesn't collect impact fees right now. And they suspended the collection of impact fees with the court case or whatever. Am I right? Is that true?
We are currently not collecting impact fees.
So
Because, and the reason we're not collecting them is because we have to have a park plan
Right.
that has calculations, has math of how we came up to that fee, and we don't have that. Until we have that, we could be potentially sued by collecting them.
Sure.
Impact fees have, I can't remember the exact, but I have an actual list of what we collected in the year that we collected in the year we're supposed to spend it. And if we haven't spent it by that, we're supposed to return it to, and I think we're pretty damn close to having to return some of those.
So this cleans
So-
the slate to
it-
start anew.
It really puts us to that,
I guess.
so that's why I'm more like, that's why I'm more like, but I would agree that it would be better that you would have had a plan on how you were going to spend them. It's just,
Well, we'll have a plan, but
everything has taken so long to get to where we are at this point. And I think the board has been, we would like to continue to collect impact fees into the future so that it can continue to fund things that you guys would like, or the plan would like to do in the
Right.
future. So I'm hoping that this $26,000 won't be the last
Right.
that would be in this account.
so
We could probably, if it sounds like you're close to having a list of repairs,
We're-
maintenance and costs.
we're working on it. I mean,
Would you have it by next month?
well, I mean, I certainly would have
September?
some of it.
I mean, if it's, here's what I'm thinking, is that we could do a vote on essentially just a technicality of allocating the 26,000 from the impact fees to park expenses, even if it's a 4 to 5 vote. I think that's a reasonable vote to have and probably acceptable to both of us. But I think we would still need, it couldn't just be a blanket, we're gonna give the park committee 26,000, it's gotta be some kind of
So
expense.
yeah, just tell us what the approval process is. Is it like the 15,000?
Well, this is gonna be different. This is gonna be different because we need to vote on it. Technically, it would be a budget amendment.
Yeah.
If we transfer this into the budget for 2024, we'll need a vote on the budget amendment.
Yeah.
So it's different than the procedure.
You decide, I just need the knowledge.
And what I'm hearing about the $15,000 is the 15,000 was originally budgeted to pay to get a park plan built, which it sounds like we may not have to pay to get that done.
Right.
So that too, before we start spending that $15,000, we either need to recharacterize it, in my opinion, or put it into the budget next year.
I'm not sure that it was specifically, I mean, Jennifer will probably know when she comes back, but I'm not sure that it was specific. I think informally it was, oh, we're gonna use that for the park plan. In the budget itself, it probably was just a park line item and not specified.
I think you had described before that we're over halfway through the year. We're more than halfway through budget cycle. We're starting the budget cycle. And I think we should be looking for 2025 for this kind of procedure. And I'm glad this is happening. We do need let's get with it, but head into 2025.
So are you suggesting that you would say in recharacterizing or reassigning or whatever the impact fees could wait until 2025 on that too?
I would say that could be part of our budget deliberations.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it will be, I mean, one way or another, it will be anyway.
yeah,
Because
it will
start
be there.
less than a week.
And unless there's a thing that says we have to
Source say, obviously, from these dates.
start giving this
Yes.
back.
So some-
Tomorrow, I'll start.
Right,
So somebody.
If we don't have to.
That's what Jennifer just pointed out, so
So,
it looks like we're,
So the bottom three.
looks like we're close on.
yeah,
Must be used within 8 years.
So we collect interest, which we can, keep that, obviously,
sure.
but
Right.
there's a time limit that we have to use, so that's why.
So my question would be with the bottom three, the 15, 14. Within 14, was no, that money is no longer,
No,
We
no, we
can
still
add
have
that?
it, we still have it.
okay,
It's still in the future.
but being that's beyond 8 years, so that's my other question there.
No, but
Fortunately, it's.
Is that
small,
just an advisory?
Yeah, I mean, so-
Yeah, it's an advisory, but I think that you want to be cognizant of what is happening and that we have to recognize that we collected them and this is the requirements, how we collected them under. And that, unfortunately, this is meant to be used and there are certain requirements of how we have to use it, so.
Do you think we've already spent money this year on any of the parks that we could reallocate this money to pay that?
I feel like we probably have obviously spent
Yeah.
money on parks that this money probably could have done, we just didn't really.
you just
We didn't really move it out of there and put it in there,
Sure.
right? You know what I mean?
Staffing.
Right,
Staffing maintenance,
Right.
the salaries related.
right.
to
I just
that.
think we need to be better and I think part of all of what we're doing all of what we're doing today. But I think what we should do is probably remove some of this money from this account so that we are making a clear accounting of what we're doing.
Mhm.
And the prior park chair had some thoughts of what he wanted to do specifically, so we never touched this money because he had some thoughts, so.
Right.
Well, the visibility alone is important.
Okay, let's keep going here. Actually, let's go backwards. Let's go backwards to 7A, and this is setting a date for the joint subcommittee and the town board.
And I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What do you anticipate is the purpose of the joint meeting, just so I'm clear of that, whether it's the recreation open space plan, whether it's budgeting issues, whether it's, you can tell me.
I think
happy.
originally was to meet us. If you go back far enough.
Yes, after listening to what Dave had to say, I wonder if Dave, would you want the board to maybe revisit setting a date until after, maybe to when you guys have had a chance to meet with Bridget? And would it be better to meet together once the park plan is like in a draft form and the town board and the park committee just could talk about the draft plan? Would that make?
I mean, that's certainly a valid option. I mean, I'm just deferring, the request was that they wanted the park board to meet with
I would
with
like
the
a
board, and so I didn't know if that was part of pre-planning or planning. It's like, okay, you guys are taking this, we know about this, we're doing this, we would like you guys to do this or whatever for the.
I think part of it was even whenever we started talking about this, there was no inventory like you did already. There was nothing like that to even look at. So I think it's two things, I think, to me. It seems like Bridget would be one reason to get together, whatever she's put together. But then also the next step of your inventory and your analysis of what things might cost and what things should happen and what the priorities are.
Right, and
That I think would be great to talk about.
right, and we haven't got to that point yet.
Right. Maybe
We
we-
prioritize things based on,
Yeah.
how easy it is, how expensive it is, what the need base is for that. I mean, any of that.
So maybe we schedule based on those two activities and whenever it's appropriate to have meetings about. It doesn't have to be one meeting necessarily.
I mean, Bridget said 2 months, which would be, our park committee meeting in August, which I'll probably ask her if she wants to come to that, is the 28th of August. I mean, we could tentatively if you, all of you wanted to be there to have the discussion with Bridget, or and while we're there, or you want a separate meeting that doesn't have anything to do with Bridget? And I'm fine either way, whatever
Well,
you
she's,
want.
but she's, now are we gonna have things to her by the 28th, or is she gonna have?
I'm gonna have
ready
things
by
to
the
her in
28th?
July.
But I'm sorry?
I'm gonna have things to her that she
Okay.
wanted in July.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not giving you a date, just July.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, I will talk to her. I'll also see where she is in her process of putting this together, and then I will suggest that perhaps she should come to the August 28th meeting to go over the draft version of that and see what else the park committee has to do, what the board has to do, if she has more demographic information. One of the things she wanted the park committee to do, which we haven't done yet, is, and there is some information that Jennifer provided about historic areas in the town of Oregon. She made it very clear that those are important things to include in your recreation and open space plan. So one of the things that we plan on doing is to the extent there is an inventory, using that inventory, which you provided part of that, and the other part would be adding any inventory of historic sites for the plan. Like, I don't think previously, like the information about the schoolhouses that's peppered around the township was in that open space and recreation plan. So I don't know, that was something she said was an important thing for us to nail down. So, which I was surprised about, but I'm happy to do.
I think it might help for from Bridget's perspective to put a draft joint meeting on the calendar so that Bridget's got something to shoot for. So I think we should put something on the calendar after that 28th meeting.
September board meeting. we can
Yes,
just do that.
yeah, something like that.
Is that?
So that Dave can go back and say, we're working towards a joint park board, town board meeting in August. We'd like to get together with you at the regular park committee meeting on the 28th to see where you're at, so that we can be ready for that meeting whenever that town board
Second
meeting is.
Tuesday.
Yes.
Of September.
I mean, I would suggest, like, I would suggest if you could, and this is just my suggestion going on that, would it make it sense to try to do it at the park, doing a joint, if you're wanting to do it on the night of the park committee meeting, if we're thinking of that, if you want the town board to come to your park committee night.
Mhm.
On the 28th.
Well, I was kind of going to suggest moving it out of August, because you guys are going to you have August 6th, August 20th. I was shooting that just the board, that's very heavy for board, because you guys also have other commitments with others, is taking it and trying to go to the September park. And then maybe there'd be a little bit of time where that's kind of getting into sort of, there could be a little bit of discussion of budget for what you guys might want for 2025 too.
That sounds great.
So what I was getting at though was park committee does their thing in August
Yes,
with Bridget.
yes, yes.
We don't, but we see some or most or all of the park committee and Bridget during the September board meeting.
So do you want, that's what I was wondering, but do you want the joint meeting in September?
I'm saying maybe we hold off on the joint meeting idea until something
sorry.
evolves. I guess I didn't say specifically that, but it would be a joint-esque meeting.
Sorry.
You know, it would be the board and I guess whoever from the park committee and Bridget, if they could attend. And if not, if there's schedule conflicts, then I think we need to move it into a different meeting, separate meeting.
Is the board available for daytime meetings? I assume so. I think you've had them in the past. I'm just thinking it might.
Late afternoon works good, like most of the board members like to have like maybe a 3 p.m. meeting is a good time for some of the board members. If that works for.
The reason I ask that is because I'm a WIA soccer referee.
That's right.
And so
Tuesday night.
when you're looking at the end of August and September, October, and the first half of November, I'm typically roughing a minimum of every Tuesday and Thursday evening.
Yeah. I forgot about that. So what I said
so
about the board meeting. never
I
mind.
wouldn't be able to, so for instance, I could, if you wanted to have a board meeting during the day on any of those days, I could make that happen. But if you wanted to have it during your normal Tuesday, yeah, I'd have to designate somebody else to come. Or the rest of the park
Well,
committee.
you're gonna talk to Bridget in July, you said.
Yeah.
We're gonna have our next board meeting on, August sixth, so we really are only gonna have 3 weeks because we have to have it earlier because of the election. If you wanna just let me know,
Sure.
and then I'll put it on the agenda for August sixth and we'll revisit that at the next meeting.
Great,
Okay,
perfect.
thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna circle back. Even though it's forward to 7B just for a second. It said discussion and possible action. The only reason it said possible action on, well, we're not gonna take any action on actual purchases tonight. And I thought maybe we would take action on that proposal because I wasn't sure if committees were included, but they are included in there. So there's no action on that memo either. Anything else on item number 7? Thank you, gentlemen. I don't know if we can hang out or not, or if you wanna go.
Sorry to take so much of your time.
Oh, thanks, Dave.
It's gonna be a record, Dave. It's gonna be a world record short meeting.
It was.
It still could be. We could really take our time. It still would be. Item number 8, the torque reports. Lori?
It's on page 23 of the packet, and this is, there's not much to say. You'll be happy to know that the standalone hand washing station is a hit.
Wow,
They
good,
love
nice.
Good.
It works really well. I mean, they find they're very, and I think they're happy because they thought it was saving the town money to do.
Oh,
that.
okay.
Looking at the statistics, the reason we've been trying to keep track of usage is because we agreed this was the year we're gonna be analyzing, continuing the service and what we could afford and not afford. And so this unusually rainy, stormy summer has caused there to be days when we were open, but it was raining hard. So, and it's an obvious thing, but it's part of the whole problem of deciding when is most effective, when are the hours that are most effective to be open. And then these are just a couple extra thoughts that I gathered chatting with Jennifer earlier today. I guess we are hearing people like Wednesday, when we used to have every Wednesday open. And so as we go into the budget discussions, I think we really want to look at what can we really reasonably afford as far as, now, the reduced hours on Saturday, 8 to 1, and then having a few hours on Wednesday, that would still probably be more cost effective than, before we were open 7:30 in the morning till 4:30 on every Saturday, and then 2 to 6 every Wednesday. So that we'd still be cutting back on some of the hours. This is a subject that keeps coming up, and we can't come to some conclusion on it, but for brush drop off, we always feel there's been a kind of consensus on the board that we should always have an attendant at the site, just because people come and do bad stuff if they can get in there and throw away shingles and whatever they want to do. But might there be, continue to look at a possibility of having a self-serve? I don't know, I'm just gonna throw that out there. We talk about it, we keep going around it. But in terms of people wanting to get rid of their brush in a timely manner, especially when we have a summer like this with every other Tuesday, we have a major thunderstorm, that kind of thing. That would, I'm sure residents would appreciate that, and they often wonder why we can't just do that. But maybe it's just something we should look at. And then another thing, broadening out our charge on the torque. A lot of people are finding that they can't deal with all of their recycling pickup every other week. So we get requests down at the Torque that people wanna drop off a whole truck box full of cardboard or something. That's beside the point, but it is possible that we could think about having weekly recycling pickup along with weekly trash pickup for our service. And we could look into what that would cost, because you were saying, Jennifer, people come in and that is something that's being discussed.
So what we say to them is they can go to Pelletier and they can pay out of pocket for an extra blue container. So that's what we offer to those people that might have it.
I think we got a quote for
We did initially.
weekly recycling. I don't remember how much.
We didn't go with that when we signed the
No,
contract.
right.
The option was that if you're a resident that wanted it, you would pay
You
for
would do it
that.
on out of
Yeah,
your
you
own
would do it out of
pocket.
your own
But
pocket.
there are communities that
Yeah.
arranged that
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah.
And they were glad they did.
Yeah.
Because after they started having the weekly pickup and they realized how much recycling everybody has every week, then they were happy they did it. So it is possible for us to renegotiate, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Where everyone could have that, but it's something we could talk about,
Yeah.
is all I'm saying, and that's
It'd
it.
be a good thing, it'd be a good thing to have informal statistics in our community is that it's 2 recycle volumes to 1 of general trash.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it can be 2, even 3 times as much.
We have more recycling by far than we have trash in our house. Plus, a lot of times Sheldon brings
Just the opposite.
other people's recycling home and puts it in our bin. Cause he's being helpful at the Torque.
Oh,
He just brings-
going to work.
What a guy, what a
Brings
guy.
it to our house.
Okay, well, that's nice. of
I
you,
think
but
that's so nice of him.
it's like, maybe to help you your house.
We
Yeah.
have,
Interesting.
we own a home in Fitchburg. And they do every other, so they do trash every week, recycling in Fitchburg, which is pretty heavily recycled. But they also offer different size
Yes.
and different quantities.
Yes.
So the neighbors across the street, for instance, have 2 trash bins and 1 recycle bin.
Oh.
For instance.
Okay.
We have 1 small trash bin, much smaller than the one, the standard size one is included in your taxes.
Yeah.
There's an upcharge
Yeah.
if you want the big one, like the ones we use
Yeah,
here in town.
yeah. So it's.
So there's lots of variety.
There are options, and those residents a lot of people, I guess, don't realize that they
Yes.
can get they can cut their own deal and get an extra.
Exactly, and then Pelletier bills them independently.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
For that.
I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah.
That if they want a second recycling bin, for instance, they can work with Pelletier directly, get a second recycling bin. Pelletier bills them, I don't know, if it's annually, I think it's annually. For that second bin.
I thought Terry got.
I thought it was monthly before they started the townwide.
It was.
Yeah, it was monthly billing, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
But it was a lot more expensive than
For
the
sure.
contract, so I would assume that having an additional recycling bin on your own would be a lot more expensive than if the town included it, but I don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
We could try to see what that would work out.
There,
Sure.
but with with our contract, it's a lower rate just to get an extra. It's not very expensive actually, to just get an extra recycling.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna say maybe, it's very low for a yearly rate. I think it's a yearly rate.
Yes,
It's
I
actually
think it
very,
is. Yeah.
it's actually very,
It's
it's not very expensive.
It's like 4,500 or something like that for the year.
It's reasonable.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wonder if anybody knows that in the town.
Missing communication piece and then missing data on how many people actually want that, but if we bypass like trying to survey how many people and go right to Pelletier and say.
We do know how many, because I did the statistics on how many people get extra beds.
No, I mean,
I do
but
know
we
that.
don't know
I do know that because Pelletier knows and they share it out with
front,
us.
like today, we don't know, it's 70% of all the residents who would really like either an extra pickup or an extra bin.
I don't know how many would like it, I just am
That's-
telling you, I know how many get them because
Right.
Pelletier tells us how many, we don't get billed for it, but I just know
They-
how many Pelletary bills.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's the way to do it, is to keep it the same as
Yes.
far as what's included in your
Totally
property
agree.
tax bill.
So I think
And
I'm
let the resident,
I totally agree. Yeah, going back to the communication piece, then I wonder if they would send something out to the residents saying, hey, do you know this is available? If your recycling is overflowing, do you know this is available?
It's like, when we send out our tax bills, whereas in that little plus, if you want, that would probably be a good way to let people know that they could do that.
Yeah, I think one way or another things out.
yeah, no, they will help us with that communication, they'll give us that communication.
But it's something like that. Sort of.
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
would even mail it. I
Yeah.
bet they would mail it. Too.
Yeah.
Like a separate from the tax,
Yes.
property tax bill. So
And
it's
that's,
something,
I guess that's what we've just done because
no, right, I know, no, right. I'm just thinking that that's 6 months away. And if people have,
when they call here, we tell them,
that you can get an extra bin. Yeah, and so it's,
yeah, you can get an extra recycling bin and you can get an extra trash bin.
right,
You can get
right.
both.
Well, it sounds like a good deal. I bet you a lot of people.
It's
don't know about it.
And it is far more
It's-
reasonable
yes.
than buying out of pocket when you contracted.
Right, for sure, because they're stopping at your driveway anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
Is Grace the person still to ask
Yeah.
about whether they would send out a letter or a postcard or something?
Yeah.
I can email her.
Yeah,
I can-
okay.
I'll do that.
so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Item number 9 is plan commission.
This is an item where the board would make a recommendation and take a vote on the appointment of the plan commission has recommended that Jessica Barmack and Tim Yanacek extend their 3-year term. So their term ended. And they have asked to be reappointed. I don't know if Arlen wants to talk about it. I would make mention that the town board and certain members have asked me, and I will just let all of you know that there are not term limits on plan commission. And also when terms are up, we don't advertise, as we have only ever advertised when someone has left. So, there has been kind of a desire sometimes, well, how does someone know if they want to join the plan commission? Well, kind of only when someone decides to step down. And should there be a way where when a term should we be advertising just? And that's something that you guys might want to think about into the future, how you want to handle that. And the problem is you never want to do it where you would want to be pinpointing someone or a particular group of 2 people that.
Yeah,
You
this
would
is not
feel
the
like-
time. I mean, this is
Right.
not the time to do it.
Right, but the ordinance of the plan commission setting it up is weirdly written anyway, so we need to look at it and.
And there's
reword it.
statutes involved too. There's statutory requirements. I don't know if it's about term limits or just in general about the plan commission, but we'd have to balance with statutes too.
Kind of, yeah, I mean, there's, yes, not really term limit thing, but yes, I think we would just want to make sure that. I think the board can really decide whether or not they just wanna make it open to everyone in the town and let town residents know so they would have an opportunity, or if you're just okay with letting people continue to.
I think there is a discussion to be had about that.
Yes.
And not tonight,
Not
but
tonight, no.
but I think about whether there is a limitation to number of terms, about how to fill vacancies. I think the whole situation, I think, has been very informal, seemingly informal up until, well, still. And that's not necessarily totally appropriate that plan commission members can continue on more than, say, like board members. It could, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Well, but I think overall, I think there's a discussion to be had at the board level at a future meeting. I mean, we've got some time, but I wouldn't put it off again because I know this was a topic that came up a year or so ago too, about how to handle expiring terms.
I think the way that you have it handled, though, I just want to make it clear that you don't want everyone leaving in 1 year and leaving everyone in the
Right.
lurch. Where that you would be handling it this year, if you're doing it in 2, so you would be,
Right.
still having people,
Yeah, so all those details we need to sort out.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, let's be clear also that until about 2 years ago, this list was not really out there. It was sort of buried by the previous board.
It's been more than 2 years, but I know, because I went back and I like dug through all of the records and I created it all because it was like, it just kept going, and I was like, yeah.
I don't, you, and thank you very much, but that was about 2 years ago that you did that yeoman's effort because it was asking. Okay, but right now, the 2 members we have, really Tim and Jessica, are relatively new. And in the past 2 years, we have formalized the nomination process. So things are moving along. And I would move that we approve Jessica Barmark and Tim Yanacek as renewing their terms to expire June of 2027.
Thank you. Here a second.
I would second that.
Steve seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, and motion passes. And then we also have, I don't think we need to, as far as the board representative,
Talk about this for just a minute, if you don't mind.
about the Arlen, which are,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
As far as
Go ahead, go ahead.
as far as the
I'm sorry.
board member representative on the plan commission, we would only do,
You can just appoint it and then the board confirms your appointment.
but is the timing correct now to do that?
Well, yeah, I would do it now because you didn't do it before, so I would
Okay,
do it.
so I would appoint Arlen Kai as the appointed town board member of the plan commission. And then we need a second on
I
that.
would second that. as
Steve
well.
seconds that. Any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, motion passes. Whether you want it or not, Arlen.
We didn't give you the choice.
I guess we did.
This time we do.
You should have piped up in the discussion if you.
And so is that an annual thing?
Yeah.
Is that
It
an
is.
annual thing?
In the ordinance, the town board, the chair appoints,
Okay.
the wording is funny, but basically the town board chair appoints and then the town board members confirm the appointment of a board member serving on the plan commission for a year.
Got it.
And usually it would be done at the meeting,
And I'll bring some stuff.
first or second meeting after the election.
There's some, yeah, there's
After the
some,
spring election.
there's some suggested window of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really quirky that needs to all kind of be looked at.
Got it.
Mhm.
I
Okay,
can bring some more.
and then,
Yeah,
plan commission,
Yeah.
item 9B is discussion of possible action regarding the CUP process and procedure.
Well,
And I want to apologize. So in your original packet, I had a really long list. And the reason that it got amended is I was working with the county on what that looks like. In February, you might remember that Roger Lane and Rachel Holloway came to the town and they gave a presentation on how we need to handle CUPs, these conditional use permits. And it has to be quasi judicial, so it's much different than how we handle rezones and land divisions. We have to run it like a courtroom, so it's much different in Dane County, because in Dane County, we co-zone with the county. So it also is much different than other places in the state. So the original one was ones that I had found. Well, on Monday, Roger Lane had been out of the office. On Monday, Rachel said, me and Roger talked, and we think these, what I have on page 25, are more simplified and would be better to use, and they would basically hold up in a court of law. it basically gives the procedures of how you're gonna do it and if somebody wants to speak. And that's really what we're doing. We're really making it known to anyone who wants how they can. And this is what we will use for, everyone was made aware that we're gonna have a CUP coming up in August 20th. That's for the joint meeting. And this is the procedures we're gonna use. And I just wanna make everyone aware, this is the notice we're gonna use and this is the procedures in case anybody wants. So this is brand new. Very simplified and short, kind of sweet. Yeah,
I think it's great.
and at 5 minutes for a speaker. If we have anybody,
Probably 2 minutes too long, but.
yeah, and you can adjust that.
I would do 3.
If you want to adjust that, would you like?
We do 3 for public comment.
Okay,
Yes, no,
okay,
enough time.
then I can adjust that to 3.
And I'm not sure about the only thing I wasn't totally sure about was it being like 2024 and all, is that emails, faxes, texts and voicemails and other formats aren't acceptable. I would think, unless there's emails is this thing that stuck in my head, I guess. Is there, because it needs a wet signature? Like if somebody were to do a written testimony, I assume they're signing it with an actual signature. Do you know if that's the reasoning behind no emails?
I would give you my, thing is, I sent you an email.
But
What if I
that's-
don't get an email? Like,
Yeah.
you know, where,
Okay,
and that would be, you know, I'm just giving you a devil's advocate of like, okay, it might have gone into my spam, it might have gone into like so I would just prefer, because there's this, you know, especially like even mail, like mail, you can't count on a mail. My husband works for the post office, but you can't count on a piece of mail getting here
right.
for the public hearing. So someone says, I get it. Well, what if I get it the day after? It's like me getting a ballot the day after an election. I can't count it the day after an election. That's the way that works.
Okay, so I missed in number 2, I missed the certified mail part of it.
Yeah,
Okay, so that makes sense. That makes total sense.
I think we're trying to cover the bases. What you're thinking of is like, you're just, you know, making it clear that people have to just, I think that was just a text, a voicemail.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hopefully, we're not really, hopefully, but I don't know, Lori, you went to some of those meetings at the Dane County Towns Association. It sounds like sometimes they can get really kind of nasty, hopefully.
Or conditional use permit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incidents.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
And they'll
I don't
do
know,
anything-
you guys should write these rules more than I don't know.
No, I think the rules are great. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It's nice and short, simple.
Yeah.
Perfect. I don't think we need to vote on adoption of it. It's procedural.
No,
So
exactly,
I think
I
we'll
just
just,
wanna,
if there's any objection, just speak up now.
I'll change it from 5 to 3.
And as far as the nastiness, the chair of the plan commission or the town board needs to be keeping unruly customers in order,
Yep.
and it can be done.
Okay,
All right. all
thank
good.
you.
Sergeant at arms.
Okay, nothing else for number 9, item 9, so number 10, item 10, road traffic safety committee report.
Short and sweet, we're going to have our first working session. A week from Thursday. Where we're going to be starting the plan for the coming year.
Mhm.
And we'll see how many millions of dollars worth of road construction we can.
You can come
But,
up with,
Pardon?
you can recommend.
Yeah, well, we will come up with something recommended that's very reasonable in that, but we're working on, we will continue to work on a 5-year plan. And we've already had a tour in June of the eastern half of the roads and showing the some very funky roads
Yes.
we have in
Yes.
Rutland. Share with Rutland. So but it's our gift. Anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Short, sweet.
I didn't catch you earlier, but would you remind the folks on the committee that email communication generally can go to the level of
hey, can you make this meeting on this particular day? Like logistic type stuff, but not anything that should be really part of a noticed meeting.
They were, these meetings have been, if there's been any emails, this is when we agreed to have the meeting, and this is a reminder.
Check your email. today.
Yeah, it's more of a reminder.
There was something today that went above and beyond. So
Yeah,
let's-
the Thursday morning is the time that most people can leave work.
And I'm not trying to get into the timing of that, I'm just the email, there was an email today that was really about a project on budgeting and not bids necessarily, but estimates on the cost. And it was directed to the board and to all of the road committee. So that kind of thing really shouldn't be via email, it should be as part of a meeting,
Yes.
part of minutes and all that stuff.
Just don't. It opens up the door for open meetings law violations. We've talked about this before. The new way of doing this, Arlen, would be that person would send it to us and we would include it in the packet. And then that would be part of it. And so it's just,
Did you send that to him? Yes.
I did not get it because he and I have gone round and round about the practice that he's done. We talked about this earlier. He has a different thought. We've talked about that before. I think he can do what he wants. It's in a different way. And the way is, we're gonna put it in a packet. So the road and traffic safety, he can share the information, but it would go in a packet, not in an email that's gonna be shared. It has to do with open meetings law, and it opens up everybody's email to possibly be, I don't understand how come that's difficult, but I'm really trying hard, and I'm frustrated at it. I know. I don't want to see it because
I think he just needs a reminder.
I think
I'm
it
gonna
just,
say it.
I will send a little reminder to, thank you very much. We look forward to including this in the packet. The best procedure is for you to send the packet information to.
and I will do road and traffic safety. So we like kind of divide our
You'll
group,
be-
and I will do
okay.
road and traffic safety. Park goes to Stephanie, so he can send it to me, and then I will make sure to include it in the packet. And that's the best way to handle it going forward, not in an email that he sends to everyone. And it really will protect him into the future, because he could potentially have his entire email opened up if there wasn't a
Okay,
request.
but so everybody's email can be subpoenaed. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Plus it was way too long.
It was big.
Most emails are,
That was long.
You know, I will.
I agree. I agree with a lot of what he says, because I haven't been about that, but
That one.
yeah, okay. I will scratch my head when I saw it.
with a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Wasn't either,
It's just-
but that's because I
it should-
should fix it.
I just saw that it was
As
long
you
and said,
tell.
and
And
put
you
it,
did,
put
and
it,
you put it in your to-do.
it's in the to-do list, it was in my to-do pile to be discussed at the meeting.
Well, that's what it should be.
And that's
I mean,
where,
that's where.
and that's
it
where
should be on
I
the-
left it,
should be on
so.
the agenda.
And I don't know how many members that you are looking on the road and traffic, but I have another member. His name is Jeff Jones. He worked for Jeff Jones. He lives on Gray Owl Court. He worked for Payne and Dolan, and he recently retired. So I think he would be a good addition.
Okay, what is it, how do you spell his last name?
Jones.
Jones,
Yeah,
Like Mrs. Jones.
Yeah.
okay,
and I think he would bring another perspective to road work. I think he would bring these, he actually worked on the road crews. So he worked with Susie on projects, so.
Yep.
he's-
They
Yeah.
know each other.
just
Yeah.
retired, well, here, right now we have. You show up and you suddenly you're part of the committee.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I
If
did that.
is there any
Oh, you mean there should be a formal process?
Pardon?
A formal process.
We,
You're
so
just
far, we
showing-
haven't had any swearing in ceremony, but.
Well, no, I did swear in everyone. I haven't sworn in Susie, but everyone else has been sworn in. I've done the due diligence for everyone. Susie, I haven't yet, but that's just because of the timing. She just went to that one.
Now, I think this is all, you're reinforcing that we have a great amount of talent that is willingly being shared for the benefit of the town.
Yeah.
And there's different, and at this time, it is difficult to say, I don't know what Chuck Crawford health situation is. So we may or may not be there. I would say that Mr. Jones, if he has retired from Payne and Dolan, he has in fact retired.
He's on the young, very young side, I would say, of retirement.
Yeah.
So like very, like.
Well, I mean,
If you're like
Yeah.
thinking of retirement of, that would not be.
I would be very concerned about any
Yeah.
potential conflict of interest.
Mhm.
But right now, I am, I see,
Conflict of interest to that extent, no, just a nice guy.
does the board have any strong feelings on this? Because I've been
How many committee members do you have? Is it 10?
six.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, 2, 3,
2, 3,
4.
4, 5, 6. Myself, 7.
Okay, so,
We don't have 50.
okay, I would just watch whether it's a workable number. or
Yeah.
not. It sounds like it's workable at this point. You know, once you hit like 10 or something, it's gonna be too much. Might be,
Somebody
it might
said
be
you
too
don't
much.
want more than, that can fit 2 pizzas or something, isn't that a rule? That you can't.
Yeah, so we have 2 vehicles.
Two
Two
pizzas.
pizzas.
You mean
pizzas.
large pizzas or?
Yeah, then that's too many
Extra
people.
large.
Extra large.
16-inch pizza.
Okay,
People can't stop.
so
Okay, so.
he's got the time and the date.
You let me know what you wanna do.
I'd
I'll
say
reach out.
unless there's objection on the part of the board, I'd say he'd be welcome.
Okay,
That sounds
thank you.
great.
As long as he's definitely retired and has no loyalty or commitment to Payne and Dolan or sponsors his race car.
No.
There's
He'd
always
be a
that.
good addition, he would.
Okay, anything else for road and traffic safety committee? Sounds like no. Number 11, do we have a public works report at all? It's not, nothing in the packet, anything to. Anything that's going on that we need to know? Okay. Number 12, item 12, building inspections report that shows the permit log is on page 26. Building committee report. Jennifer, how far is everything done with the remodel?
There's a few little like things that I think they just have to touch up,
Okay,
so.
Has has Ed Linville signed off, say that the thing is complete, that he can give to the building, having the building inspector's record?
I didn't know that was supposed to happen.
That's
Final inspection.
it's a final inspection and that everything is in, it's one of those little things that says, everything's done.
Yeah.
Do you
It's all
want me to
done.
contact him or will you contact them?
I'll give him a contact.
Awesome.
would Ed sign off on it or would we sign off on it? Does
No,
Ed,
he
he
signs
signs
off,
off as the.
he signs off as the architect of record. We have an architect of record,
Okay,
make him
Love it.
look for it.
okay,
Thank you.
super.
That's awesome. So do I need, does he just come here or do I have to have, Dan have to be here at the same time? Oh, okay.
He just has to come in, looks around and pretty much says, yep,
Looks like it's done.
it's done.
Cool, thank you.
It's, this is not a huge project, so it's not gonna take a detailed inspection.
I like it though.
Did the painting get touched up, the walls where it really didn't cover? Is that's?
Still coming back, there's still some
Oh.
stuff.
Yeah, if you find anything that's particularly derelict and annoying, this could be also time to.
Okay. Sounds good. Would you guys like to come in and do that too, or? At some point, we'll have our meeting too, right, our building
Yeah.
committee meeting.
Right.
I think Abel's off this week, so then we can try to schedule it after the week.
Okay.
And get together. I will just mention that, Kaiser Construction, Jacob Bachman, had given us a quote for building the storage unit out in the shed. And then we decided we needed to have some sort of like temperature control.
Yes.
He came in and we gave him your drawing. I've not shared it with the other board members. We had not met on it. I just happened to give it to him because he was like, hey, what are you doing? He took it back and he's been working with some of his contractors on what that would look like on pricing, so we'd have just some idea of what
Okay.
that would look
So who
like.
is this that you,
Kaiser Construction,
okay,
and that would be, it's Jacob Bachman. Kaiser Construction is a local company. They were the other ones that bid on this project and the Hefty was just a little bit lower, so they got the.
yeah. I mean, it was very incomplete, it was very schematic. There's a lot of information that's not in there. So,
Yeah, no, we knew that. He was just sort of like, oh, and so I thought, well, that's exactly what we told him, but it would give us a good idea of what it would cost, because.
but that comes back to, we had talked about having a meeting with some representatives from the board as well as staff as to what it is that we really need there to be making a recommendation, to be moving forward, to be getting more formal bid. When are we doing, and I thought we were talking about doing that this month.
Is that what you're
At
talking
one
about?
time.
I just said we
The building
can't
committee?
do it
Yeah.
until after Abel gets back and
Yeah.
he's gone this week.
So next week, we're gonna try. for it.
Okay, so let's have the building committee meeting and
Yep.
keep doodling this along.
Yep, absolutely. And Stephanie's back.
Yeah.
Abel's he's gone for this week.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, anything else on that? Okay, item 14 is any board communication of future agenda items, and there's a list.
I
on the
guess
agenda.
that's the September park committee. Maybe it's
When is that?
September
What's the
25th.
date?
Yeah,
Is it the last Wednesday in September?
It's the last Wednesday of every month.
I'm so sorry. I was like,
No worries.
Wednesday, September 25th. I took you all the way to the end of September.
Yeah, always the last Wednesday, not the fourth, but the
Okay.
last Wednesday.
If we have dates, we don't have times on a number of things here.
Do you want the times?
Yeah, like next Monday,
that's
July 15th, our budget work session.
3 o'clock,
Calendar, but it's 3
3
p.m.
o'clock, I think.
3,
Yeah.
3, 4.
thank you.
And then can I just point out on the 11th, this Thursday, it's not the board.
No, open
It's-
book
It's
is,
strictly the.
Yeah. it's
yeah,
just,
assessment.
it's only, if you got a notice and you want to come in and talk to the assessor.
So I think
And I think I might have had that on the calendar for the first, actually, and I might have confused some people. Road and Traffic Safety Committee, is that 9 a.m.?
That's 9 to 11, yes. 9 o'clock.
Board of Review will be, I have Carl, Lori, Arlen Kai, and Tim. Yes,
On the
no?
29th?
Yep,
That sounds right for me.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm on there.
okay, and then I have no, Steve.
See, and Jennifer has pointed out that we do not, she's not bringing the beer. She's not
I don't
bringing
know if I
cards.
said that.
Mhm.
I think you said there's no goofing around, that you sit there and wait and stare at the wall, waiting for somebody to come in the door.
Yeah, we
I
can't. do
think I
other
said I bring the
business.
mark.
Can't do other business.
There we
No goofing around.
No, and we can't go or gossip about the residents.
Not that.
I believe the Wednesday, June 31st, the joint meeting, I believe that does start at either 6 or 6:30. And that probably will happen in the, at the Village Hall
What?
in their conference room.
It's 6 or 6, so it's.
The July
Is
31?
it 6:30?
I didn't have any time, I didn't,
What is it?
6:30?
Yeah, it's the joint Oregon Fire and EMS district meeting. July 31st.
And
It's
where is it?
6:30.
July 31st, it's a district meeting?
Yep, you've been to them before. We used to do them at the senior center.
Yeah, this is at the village now?
It's gonna be at the village hall. I'm pretty sure it will be at the village
Yeah,
hall.
that's got.
There's no voting. Was there voting?
Not this time, because they'll just present the budget at this one.
Okay.
It's
so
like the pre-one, they'll let us know what the budget's gonna look like. We'll
So
get a sticker shock.
So we don't need a
No, I don't
quorum
think we will.
necessarily, we don't need a quorum
We
necessarily.
won't need a quorum, no.
So
Mm-mm.
attendance is optional.
And it will be much
Okay.
shorter because the senior center will present, because we've really eliminated that by giving that amount.
So it's at 6 o'clock or 6:30?
6:30, I
6:30.
think, Tim said,
I have 6:30.
and that probably makes,
We'll get,
we'll get an agenda closer to
we'll
it.
get it.
Yeah, the village will do an agenda for that. The park will have a meeting on July 31st. You guys are meeting at 6 or 6:30,
6.
okay? So then, just to remember that we'll meet at 6 on August 6th. That's the moving up of the date because of the election. That August 20th is that joint meeting. So what that's gonna look like is we're gonna open it up. We're gonna have a joint public hearing. We're gonna hear the CUP.
Right.
All right, and then we're gonna decide on the CUP first. Then we're gonna hold a public hearing on the land division of the rezone. And then we're gonna hold it on the blanket rezone, which
Right.
that was what Brian Standing talked to us about last month. So we're gonna handle that on August 20th as well.
Yep.
And then we're gonna be able to leave and let the plan commission carry on with their meeting.
Good.
So I guess the only thing would be is we can talk on July 15th of setting some more budget.
Because the 15th, we said it was gonna be about an hour at the most, for
Yeah.
the short one.
So,
Steve, do you need to stretch or?
I just, beautiful little cramp that just came and,
Just passing.
oh, it's just,
So close.
it's just passing,
We're
I'm saying.
so close.
We're so why don't we just
I can
accommodate?
feel it come on. Oh, it's the same one I got, almost a year ago during the Badger Challenge on last hill. I'm halfway up this hill, Dave can relate to this. I got this knot that went. I stopped the wall. Oh, that one I had to stop. Okay, anyway.
So are we good on the list of
This point for me.
meetings, I think? Clerk's report, I see that there's the info about the absentee ballots in the packet. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or about the election in general.
Can I ask one question?
Yes,
Is the visioning process, is that going on and is that part of a meetings that exist or is that going to be separate?
We still need to schedule the next.
Separately listed meetings?
We didn't include it here because we had a little break due to vacations and we didn't set.
Election.
The election, yeah, so we'll pick up again with Sharon from the UW Extension. Okay, so we're in a.
We were waiting for some feedback because we're working with the UW
River
Yeah.
Falls? Yeah.
River Falls, and they kind of take a break for the summer.
Mm.
So, and then they get their students back and we're waiting because they're gonna do our survey. And we're waiting for them to give us a quote on how much it would cost for us to do their survey.
Right.
And
And the
I
last-
think they take, Yeah.
Because I forget when we got the email from Sharon,
Mm-hmm.
a week, 10 days ago or so, she was in contact with the person at River Falls. And that person still hadn't quite come up with an accurate estimate on cost. And they'll be doing the analysis of the survey results.
So,
And I guess sort of the crafting of the.
sort of survey
yeah,
results.
Yes.
yeah.
Well, one thought that just pops into my head, if we wanted to survey the town, for instance, on park development or something, is this something maybe we could dovetail in for like almost no extra cost? Or should we just worry about that, sending out survey stuff ourselves, just strictly for the park?
My first reaction is to do it separately.
That's fine.
That's just me.
And we're gonna do it by neighbor, park
a neighborhood.
park specific areas,
More geographically.
yeah, who's gonna be using that park
Yeah, that would be
within.
separate.
But I just didn't know, thinking about overall, but anyway, you're actually probably gonna include something in the vision thing, I would imagine, on parks and recreation stuff. So that's
The
fine.
county was here when we were talking, they will send postcards for free for us. So perhaps if you said something like that, they could do QR codes in neighborhoods where the parks are normally located. And what we've learned is that people that live in neighborhoods are more likely to use QR codes and stuff. So it's possible we could hook up with the county and they might be able to.
That's interesting. Thank you. That's something new every day.
We learn something new.
And I was gonna say too, so Sharon, the scope is really defined already for her participation in this,
That's fine.
so just
No worries. Just thought I'd ask the question.
still cramped up.
Oh, yeah, that's, I don't think it's nice enough to get you a
Do
nice
you want-
cold bottle of water right
Your
here.
scooter thing here?
No, it's just.
Your knee scooter? Your-
It'll be
I
okay.
don't have it here.
Actually, I'm gonna lay down. For you.
What's that?
Maybe want to lay down or just place your foot.
It's gonna be a nice bottle of water.
We're almost to 16. Any clerk's report other than nothing else? Good. Okay, everybody's good with me? All right, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Dave, there's one comment or question I have for you.
Yes.
Well, those pads.
Oh, the pads.
Are you looking for pads for under all the swings? First of all, and I tried to get a hold of